I think one reason why Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson couldn't come to an agreement on what truth meant in their episode, in their conversation, I think was because Sam Harris felt that Jordan Peterson was using truth in a way that just it wasn't what everybody, like the majority, would use it as. Like when you say the scriptures are true, or the story of Adam and Eve is true, and you're not actually saying it's factual, it actually happened, this is reality. If you're not saying that, and you're using true in a true north, arrow flies true kind of way instead, then it's confusing. You are listening to Do You Have a Minute with LS and NDM, and I wonder if we should call ourselves something different. I mean, not our real names, but could I just be L? What would you be?
L and N. I don't know.
L and N. I don't know.
I think LS NDM, that's good enough.
All right. We'll leave it that way.
It can be a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a mouthful. In this podcast, we talk about just whatever we're thinking about, but today we decided to talk about truth. So
truth?
This is a truth.
Or true?
True, truth, trueness, truthfulness. What else could you...
Truity?
Truity.
Truism?
Yeah, we've been hinting that we would talk about this at some point for the last 20, what episode would this be?
Because everything hinges on this. It's like a linchpin. It's a linchpin for everything.
Yeah. So I've found a couple different definitions for the word truth.
Because it's used in a number of different aspects.
It's what it seems. Yeah, it's not cut and dry. It's not a easy to understand word. It should
not
be,
like
right?
Tree. Tree is tree. Truth?
Well, is tree? I think you could also...
What's the truth of tree? Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Merriam-Webster defines truth as the body of real things, events, and facts. Actuality.
Real.
That's his first. Yeah. The body of real things, events, and facts. The state of being the case, like a fact.
That's a noun definition. I noticed a noun and a verb definition for truth.
Okay. The verb definition is what? What is the verb definition? Merriam-Webster doesn't show me whether it's the noun definition or the verb definition.
A noun or a verb?
The property of being in accord with fact or reality. There's an archaic definition is sincerity in action, character, and utterance.
Oh, that's right. Truth, I was confused in that. Truth is just a noun. You can't truth something.
You can't truth something?
So yeah, truth is not a verb.
Maybe we can turn it into a verb.
I was, well, I don't know. I was connecting truth with trust.
Oh, okay.
Trust has a noun and a verb definition. And in the definition of trust, so as I was looking at this, the noun trust references truth. You've got to trust something that's true. So that's where I was looking at. That's kind of a tangent. But you can also trust as a verb, which doesn't have to be true. You're trusting something, some event, or something else which can be true or not. But in order to trust as a noun, place trust in something, it has to be true, is part of the definition. True is just a noun.
Truth is a noun. So another definition is, it's another definition. It's, another way to put it is in this 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book that we're reading together.
Yeah.
Stephen Covey says, truth is a knowledge of things as they are.
Which is what you just said, Merriam-Webster, actuality?
Yeah.
Was it actual?
Yeah. Actuality.
Okay, so what's that make you think about?
Well, as they are. That implies that truth is not subjective. It's as something is, not as one perceives it. It's as it is, right?
Depends on what the word is means. Right?
Okay.
Referencing Bill Clinton, it is as they are now, in the past, or in the future.
Yeah.
There's are encompasses a lot of things. There's a spectrum for that,
Right.
which
is
are we dealing with when you're talking about truth? You go ahead with that.
So there's one more place. I was listening to Sam Harris's Making Sense podcast.
Okay.
Where he had a conversation with Jordan Peterson, right? This is the famous conversation.
When was that done?
It was 2017. 2017. Yep. So let me see if I can play it so that you can hear it. So this is episode 62, What is True? And I bookmarked a spot at about 35 minutes.
So he was talking about objective or subjective truths.
The idea is that we can never stand outside of human conversation and talk about reality as it is or truth as it is. We never come into contact with naked truth. All we have is our conversation and our tools of augmenting our conversation, scientific instruments and otherwise. And all we really have, the currency of truth, is whatever successfully passes muster in a conversation. So I say something that I think is true, and it seems to work for you. We're playing a similar language game, and some people disagree. They criticize what we are claiming to be true, and we go back and forth. And all we ever have is this kind of ever-expanding horizon line of successful conversations that allow us to do things technologically that are very persuasive. So as you say, we can build hydrogen bombs. And so the conversation about the structure of the atom, at the very least, the conversation about the amount of energy hidden in the otherwise nebulous structure of an atom, that becomes, very well grounded in facts that we all can agree are intersubjectively true.
So he was arguing towards subjective truth. I thought that Sam Harris argued in that conversation towards objective truth.
I didn't listen to the second half of the podcast because I'm not a subscriber, and so I can only listen to the first half right now. I used to be a subscriber. I have listened to the whole thing, so.
Yeah, and I listened to the whole thing in the past too, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
2017.
Right. So, yeah, in that minute there, he's like, we can't know the truth as it is. We can only know what we're conversing about it, right?
Well, and that's like what we spoke of a few weeks ago in regard to the four people that we bring to a conversation: who I think you are, who I think I am, who you think I are, and who you think you are.
Yeah.
Those four people are talking, and that's the subjective perspective he's talking about. You don't, well, kind of, he's talking about that. He's talking about it's what you perceive about the truth that is spoken of.
That is spoken of, right? And that's the conversation that we're all having with each other, and that's as true as we can get, right?
Perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps.
From our position, I think, and that's what we're trying to identify with this conversation, trying to figure out how to deal with that. If it's just us,
I wonder, is there objective truth that we can know? Can we know the objective truth about anything?
If it exists, it can be known.
If it exists, it can be known.
All right. So there's weird things about that.
Not right now. Maybe we can't know it right now, but after we die and we become eternal beings, we can know. Or,
well, certainly we can't know about immortality while we're mortal.
Yeah.
So, right, if there's a truth in immortality, we talked about immortality and eternal life, truth about eternal life or immortality even, you don't know that. Even if you have a near-death experience, I don't know that you understand immortality.
Yeah.
So you don't know the truth of immortality. It's a word that we use. We think it's true. We say that's true, and it's a true concept, but we won't know until perhaps we're in it. Just like when I was going to Minnesota as a young man, I had no idea what Minnesota was going to be like.
Yeah.
I was an Arizonaite. I lived in Arizona my whole life. Being sent to Minnesota, I wondered if we were going to live in tents in the snow.
Uh-huh.
But no, Minnesota is a booming society. There's skyscrapers.
It's a regular place.
Right. But I had no concept of that from my little small town in Arizona, thinking there was anything. So I didn't know the truth of it. But as soon as I saw it, I perceived that. I just remember wondering what another place could be like. Is it truly just as this place is? And it was.
Have you ever been to, like, did you ever go anywhere before you went to Minnesota? What travels did you make in your teenage
No,
and young
actually,
boy
yeah, I
years?
did. When we were kids, we did have a vacation to Hawaii one year that my father had made a pretty good crop one year, and so we took a Hawaii trip vacation.
You went to Hawaii when you were a kid? Well, I know you went to Hawaii on your honeymoon.
On my honeymoon.
That
Yeah.
wasn't the first time, huh?
No, no, but it was the last, most likely. I mean, we had some good times as kids there in Hawaii, and I think my eyes swelled up, and a couple of us, I mean, we had mosquitoes or something that bothered us horribly when we were there. We went in December.
Huh.
But it was fun. It was interesting. We got bumped up to first class on one of the planes.
Because your eyes were all swollen up.
Maybe they felt sorry for us. There was room in first class. We got bumped up to first class, and I remember eating the buffet at the back of the first class seating area. You know, they had fruits and pineapples and all kinds of stuff.
You've been to Hawaii twice, and you flew first class.
I got to fly first class once.
Wow.
And I remember that. That's really nice.
That's cool. I have never heard that story.
Right. Maybe there's more to it. There's more in my memory. That's when I started writing my journal too. My parents, they said, you should all write about this. So that may be why we remembered it, because they asked us to write about every day.
Yeah.
So I started writing. I could probably find those journals. I should look for those someday.
You know, that's kind of like my first journal experience. Is you and Mom gave me a sketchbook journal on when we went to Disneyland when he was just back from his mission.
Right. That Disneyland trip.
We all went to Disneyland, and me and got a sketchbook journal to what I understood was to document the trip.
And so you did. You remember the trip more because you documented it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I remember I got kind of sick one day. That was an adventure. For how old was I? Had to have been like 7 or 8. Not very old.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember.
I was not very old, but I took care of the problem as best I could, and made a mess in the bathroom. Someone else had to clean up after I took care of it.
All right.
But
I'm sure we enjoyed cleaning that up.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure everybody was like, those darn homeschool kids don't know anything.
Right.
Back to truth, though.
The truth of those things. I mean, are those experiences true? Is that an objective truth that those things occurred?
Well, on each of those, at each of those events, there were plenty of people to experience them, right? So my experience is true for me, but it definitely wasn't Mom's experience. It wasn't your experience. We had different experiences.
Okay, so truth based on perspective still.
Right.
Kind of what Sam was talking about. It depends on your perspective. Everyone had it. But in reality, Disneyland, let's say Disneyland was there at the time we were there, whenever it was. If it was 2004 or 2006, I don't know when it was.
Yeah.
But Disneyland was there. There was a truth. Disneyland actually had a place. We were in a hotel. I believe we were on the second floor near the end. There was a swimming pool in the middle of it. I remember those things.
Yeah.
Do you concur with any of that? The swimming pool? Do you remember the swimming pool?
I don't remember the pool or the floor that we were on. I remember what you were doing most of the time that we were at the hotel. You were studying for your license or something
for
like
my
that.
life. So it must have been 2004.
Yeah.
When I was in that realm.
It couldn't have been that year though, because that was before I was married. So I believe it had to be 2009.
94.
Oh, you're talking about that long ago. Yes. You're talking about the first
We're
trip.
talking about my brother returning from his mission.
Yeah, definitely not 2004.
I returned from my mission in 84. It was 94.
So I don't remember you studying on that that trip. I don't remember that. I do remember second floor, and I remember it was a motel, not a hotel. I remember the door
Yeah, it was outside entrance.
Yeah.
Okay. See, so
That's
we can identify the truth of the location based on our two perspectives.
Yeah, and it was within walking distance, I think. I think we could walk to the park.
We walked. But you don't remember the pool, so maybe the pool was not truly there.
Nope, I do remember the pool. Now that we're talking about, now
that
we
you
agree
get the right
on
place.
the event, I do remember the pool.
Okay.
That's where my problem happened.
Okay.
That's where I got sick and had to go and make a mess of the bathroom.
Run inside really fast, so we didn't have to fix the whole pool for everybody.
Right. So I remember the park was there. Of course, Disneyland was there. The motel was there. The pool was there. And we have an agreement on the truth of those realities.
So we say they're objective truths?
Yes.
Because it's set in stone. It's material that we actually walked on and stepped on, and we saw it. We have anecdotal evidence that existed at that time. And then you talk about as they are. That's an as they were. So we know that hotel, as it was, existed. We have no idea if it's still there or not.
Right.
I wouldn't even know if we could find what it was at the time where that hotel was.
Where it was. Yeah. I don't remember.
Right, because we don't have any relationship to that. That was, maybe 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, that's the truth of things as they were. That's historical truths. Historical
truths, facts. The fact that those places were there, that's a fact. But history is so muddy. We talked about what veridicality.
Yeah, the verity of something, veridicality.
Yeah, the fact that we can't remember the exact event. We can remember some of it, and then the next time that we remember it, we're remembering the remembering. We're not actually remembering the event. We're remembering the event. The more I try and think about that trip, the more I lose it, I think, because I'm thinking about what I was thinking about when I last remembered it.
The last thing you thought. So there's an evolution of our thinking as we're remembering history.
Yeah. And things change.
We build on what we thought before and tell a different story.
It's like the telephone game.
All right, let's look at one piece of history that's reminded me of, and I'd like to go here and just see what your thought is on it. The first vision of Joseph Smith.
Uh-huh.
With that type of concept that he's remembering. He didn't write the first thing of that till 8 or 9 years after it happened.
Yeah, he didn't
even tell anyone. That was the first time he tried to remember it. The first time he tried to remember it, to tell someone this is what we did that time. I think maybe it was 5 years. I don't know. It's all... You can look at the facts of that historical event, that it actually happened. He wrote these things down. They were written in letters. I mean, there's dates and times attached to it. But even his description of the event was different in the 5 times that he told it.
Yeah.
Right? And there's some confusion and some concern as to whether that event was true. Is it true or is it false?
Yeah.
Did it really happen? And if it happened, why did he not mention the axe the second time? Or why didn't bring up the fiery leaves until the 4th time he told it? Did they really burn or did they not burn?
Yeah.
How much of truth really matters in our stories that we tell, or our remembrances that we tell of an actual event?
Well, and maybe you would tell a story differently to another group of people based on what you need them to hear. You need them to hear something different. So you tell one version of the story. The story might be the same, like an event that actually happened. That's the actuality of the event. But what you remember or tell about it will change depending on who you're talking to, right?
Right. And you have to consider that. I think in relation to that Joseph Smith story, at no time was he trying to tell the truth of the event that happened. He was always conversing with someone else about it or writing to someone else about it, talking to them. And that's what I think Sam Harris was talking about. It's the people, it's the conversation.
Yeah.
It's who you think you're talking to, what you're trying to accomplish with it. It's not that you know anything about the inside of an atom or the power withheld there.
Yeah.
But you're discussing And so in telling a story, he told that story differently to the 5 different peoples that he told, or however many, or different places he wrote it.
Yeah.
And other people writing about hearing the story wrote what they understood about it, what he said.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that the truth evolves then. Can we use that term?
Truth evolves.
Can you fight against that?
What you're saying then is that truth changes. And evolution generally means that it's becoming stronger. It's becoming more fit for the environment. So truth becomes more fit for the purposes of the story.
Of the people involved in it right then. So of the current time, of our current time, truth becomes more appropriate to our current time.
Yeah. Well, then it's not truth. I mean, you can't have truth that's always changing. Otherwise, it's not reliable.
Okay. The story is, well, stories. We're talking about the community of stories around that we're operating with.
Yeah.
I don't know what stories. The stories we tell are not the truth. I think that's what I kind of try to identify with that Joseph Smith story. Joseph Smith actually did something when he was 14 or 13 or whenever. But 8 years later, he told about it the first time, said, 8 years ago, I did this. Who knows? Because he didn't write it in the journal. We had that experience. I had it in Hawaii. You had it at California. Writing in a journal, you remembered it. It set something in your memory right then. He did not write in a journal that night.
Yeah.
There's nothing recorded that he did anything that day or that week. And he says 8 years later, I remember I told my mother this. I don't know if she would have remembered that exactly the way he remembered it, but he said that. And we consider that it's truth because he wrote it about it.
Right.
But can you consider his testimony as truth? And can we consider any testimony as truth? So as we're talking about things, it's to the people we're talking to. It's about this conversation in between us right now. The truth of our conversation. You see, and I've said a number of things about things I remember 8 years ago, or, we don't know what year it was. We went to Disneyland. I don't know what islands we were flying to or from with that first class plane flight. I can't prove that there was a flight that I was in a first class seat. But I'm just telling you, that's what I remember. That's my truth. That's my truth.
That's your truth.
They could come out and say, you never went to first class. I don't know. Your seat was, there could never not be any proof that I ever sat in a first class seat.
Yeah. But you were a little boy, so what happened
Right.
felt like first class, regardless of whatever it
10,
was.
10 or 11. So, I knew what I was doing, but not completely.
Yeah.
You were talking an absolute truth. The truth of the event actually occurred. Someone sat in a seat on an airplane. Someone went to a grove of trees and saw something, but there's no recorded event. It's not a video of it.
Yeah. Well, and I can't say that somebody did actually go to a grove of trees and see something.
Right.
I mean, he was an adult the first time he told anybody about it. So.
Yeah. And it's not you that did it.
Right.
You heard a story from me that you never heard before, and it was 60 years ago, 50 years ago.
Yes.
But you have no idea that occurred.
Right.
You don't know that I was in Hawaii.
I do know personally several other people that must have been on that trip with you. So I can verify that event happened with those other people that were there. Nobody else was there when Joseph had his vision.
Right. And his mother was there after he got home, and he said he talked to her, but we don't have his mother's description. I don't know. Maybe she did write something down. I don't know.
Yeah, she did write a lot of stuff, didn't she?
But there are people that are concerned with that. And as you try to find that, that's what we're talking about, veridicality with history. You can't verify exactly everything that occurred. It's all a story. And truth is evolutionary. It evolves to the current time frame because I'm talking to you in regard to that.
Right.
This is different than I would have tell anyone else on the trip to Hawaii or of Joseph Smith and my expected understanding and the belief I have in the truth of that or the ability to prove it.
Right. Yeah.
So does truth have to be provable to be an absolute truth?
Can you even prove it?
Right.
Provable is, that's a kind of a scientific thing. You can prove. Can you prove things scientifically? like specific things. Can you prove that oxygen is made, or, water is made of oxygen and hydrogen? That's provable, right?
Perhaps by experimentation.
Yeah.
I don't know how they determine what oxygen is.
Somehow they were able to find exactly which combination of molecules make up water, what make up gold, what makes up silver. They know these things because it's been proven. They wrote it down. They made it set in stone. And they know what that stone was made out of.
It seems there was a level of truth, something like that. Chemical truths are the society we live in, are biological. Maybe it's biological. We talk about atoms all the time and molecules and
Yeah, the material world that we have.
chemical structures on the earth. And they seem to be true, but you can't prove that to a common man. I know we've had the conversation for years. You can't see oxygen. How do I know it's really working? They tell me that's what it is, that I'm breathing and it's keeping my body and my blood flowing and that it works. But I have no idea what oxygen is and how much is too much and how much is too little oxygen in the air. And am I in a good room that has a sufficient supply of oxygen? We all just trust the truth that there is oxygen sufficient in every room we walk into.
Yeah, trust it. And sometimes that turns out to be not true. Sometimes people with like natural gas leaks, the gas is there more than the oxygen is there, and they pass out and die. It's
right.
Sometimes what you trust in is actually not true.
Or if you build a strong enough Faraday cage and try to exist in it for a week, you'll die because there's no external transfer of oxygen through that room. You're just breathing your own juices for a few days, and carbon dioxide is all that's left.
So sometimes then people believe things that aren't true.
Okay. Always. How about always? Always, sometimes, or never. Do you believe things that are not true? Always, sometimes, or never.
Always and never is too absolute to say that's it. Like, I don't know. I don't like absolute things like that. Does that make me a relativist? Like,
is it true that you don't like it, or is that just a lie?
I absolutely don't like it.
You absolutely don't like.
Always.
Think about that in relation to truth.
Yeah. Maybe I do like it sometimes, though. That's the thing is I like that some things are, I like believing that some things are always there. Like I know that I can always fall asleep when it's night. Like I haven't had an issue with falling asleep at night yet. And so I like that that's always happening. I can always count on sleep to come.
And isn't that why we're discussing truth? Is because you'd like to know the absolute always.
Yeah.
Always.
And so a lot of people believe that they have the absolute always truth about anything. They're about religion, about politics, about history.
And some simple things like falling asleep, that it's easy to do. I mean, for you, falling asleep is easy. For other people, that's the hardest thing they do, and they can't get it figured out.
Yeah.
So they have to drink a pint before they go to sleep so they can sleep.
Yeah, they have to drink the drowsy juice.
Right, something like that.
Yeah.
So I believe that you lied when you said you don't like absolutes. That's all you search for.
You think the only thing I search for is absolutes?
Correct.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
Am I lying when I say that?
Well, I am interested in your perspective on that. Why would that be the case?
Because you don't accept innuendo or suppositions. You're looking for a hard fact. And as we're discussing truth, the reason that truth even comes up in any of our conversations is, did that really happen? Or can we rely on that information? What was Merriam-Webster's first thing? Is it reliable or accurate or actual? Reality.
Yeah.
What's the reality of what we're talking about, of oxygen? And, we talked about the trees and these little proton machines that are inside of every cell on every molecule or proton, operators that we can't see, but we know they do this. They do functions.
Right.
How real is that? Right.
Well, I suppose I do like to know if something is absolute or not, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, so back to my question then. I guessed you. You said, I hate that, but you have to answer it now because you love it.
Because I love it. I don't
You
hate
have
it.
a love, a concern for absolutes. So is it always, sometimes, or never that we lie about what we know? What was the question exactly?
That we,
Don't know the truth that we think we know. Maybe.
maybe. So it must be always we don't know the truth about something.
Okay. Because it's not never. We could accidentally fall on the right truth. It was an actual objective truth.
Yeah. Objectively true. We're not intentionally not knowing the truth. We're trying. Maybe we're always trying.
Maliciously changing
Yeah,
things.
we're always trying to know the truth. I don't think people want to know lies about things, right? They'd much rather
Unless it's a joke. If it's a joke, you do.
you want to know the lie of the joke.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there is the ignorance is bliss idea. Like I prefer not to know anything about that because I can't be hurt by something that I don't know, right? Like if your partner was cheating on you, it in the long run it'd probably be better that you knew about it, but you feel better right now about not knowing about it. So may as well not know about it.
So you don't delve into those questions. You don't try to poke around.
Yeah.
And yeah, in relationships, that's easy to talk about. Even seeing if your actual blood is actually flowing in your body, it's best not to cut into the vein here in your wrist and see if it's actually flowing.
To see. Yeah.
It's just trust that truly it is flowing through my body. And so you can feel the pulse. But if you say, I don't know that that's really blood, that might just be spasms. So I'm going to cut that open. I'm going to cut that open and see if it actually is blood.
Yeah.
There's things that are better not to know, to accept as truth.
What are some things that we know we don't know, but there might be an absolute truth about it? Whether we can ever know what the absolute truth is or not. Does everything have an absolute truth, an objective truth?
Yeah, that's the good way to look at that. I don't know who came up with this concept, the concept that we are just, that we don't exist, that this is the computer.
Virtual reality. The Matrix is what you're talking about, virtual reality?
No, not virtual, not necessarily, but like a computer screen. Your programs that you're looking at on your desktop, the icons, they're there.
Yeah.
They're not the program. They don't do anything. They're a representation of the program. The program is something behind it. It's ones and zeros, and the actual language, we're not communicating through this video and audio and computer the way we're perceiving it. We're just perceiving this. And so icon, I think it was the icon type idea that we are just icons in the world. We're not this physical body that we see, the atoms that we are. And we've talked about that before. 90% of an atom is blank space. We're a bunch of blank space put together. And this is just an icon. Our hands, our bodies, and the computer is just icons that we see. There's something else behind it that would be the truth of it.
The front image of the actual reality.
Of the reality, of the actual truth. The actual truth of the computer is definitely not what you're looking at on your desktop.
Right. My computer is chips and processors and metal and things like that. That's what that is. But what I'm seeing is your face.
Right. And you're seeing the little hang up button and your icons on the bottom. There's icons on your computer screen.
Yeah.
And windows that are opened and different things.
Right.
So with that, those things aren't really the truth of it. Those are the representations, the icons of the truth. So maybe all we have in life is icons of the truth.
And what we can feel is just a representation of what's actually there. Like I'm rubbing my hands together, but that doesn't necessarily mean that these are my hands.
They're not hands. That's an icon. So the hand, and that's I wish maybe we can search this out and find who's talking about it.
Yeah.
But it's not your hands. They are there, but you're not actually in truth rubbing your hands together. You're rubbing the icon of your hands together. And they do create fiction. They get hot. But that's not what's happening in there. Those are atoms that have 90% space that are doing something else. Something else is happening there. It's not just as simple as rubbing your hands together. And the heat it's creating isn't just creating heat. You know, the friction is doing other things besides the icon of the friction that we have labeled in physics. Rub it together, it's going to get hotter because of friction. There's a truth behind it.
That's really hard to understand.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why these New Age philosophers talk about it so much.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's fun to talk about, I'm sure. And the more you talk about it,
the more you come to the absolute.
The absolute. Okay.
Truth does not exist.
Yeah.
And you always lie. But that's okay. That's life. What is life then if we don't have an absolute truth? Can you have life without absolute truth?
Can you have being, existence, if you don't have absolute truth?
Yeah. Or if you do have it, if you do have absolute truth, are there truths that are too hard for us to know to actually even live? What would be, I mean, depression is caused by things like that.
Okay. What do you mean?
It's too hard for me to know this. So if you tell me that my life is, let's say a relationship, husband and wife. The wife has always thought the husband was true to their relationship. And then he's got another family across the world that he's lived with, as you said, or, in another state. Said, I thought that was your business. You were called to go away, and he's living that family and this family, and those things happen. But that becomes too hard for this wife to bear the truth that the husband is her husband, but he's also the husband of his other family that has 2 kids, and he's living a double life. And that causes her to fall into a depressive state and suicide, perhaps. I mean, it ruins. It's too hard to bear. There are truths that you just don't want to know. Like you kind of mentioned, maybe finding out if your husband's, I don't know what you said earlier.
Yeah, whether a partner is cheating on you or not. It's ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss, that concept. Ignorance is bliss. You can continue living as long as you don't know certain things that are horrible. Like, for instance, do you know what your face looks like without skin on it?
No, but I did just watch something like yesterday, this morning maybe, even the Family Guy. It was just a little clip from the Family Guy where the dad is thirsty or something like that. They're right next to a fire truck. So the dad's pointing the fire hose at his face. The son turns on the water and then turns it off. And when he turns it off, it's just like the dad's skull, like all of his flesh has been eaten off.
Took all the skin. Well, the flesh and the muscles and everything were taken.
Everything. It was just that, but he did. It was entertaining. It was amusing.
Yeah, and so they put the skull, a skeleton, a clean skeleton, which is easier to see than flesh and
without
muscle,
skin, right?
Without skin.
Yeah.
So that's what they make horror movies out of.
Yeah, I went to the museum when they had the body thing, right? Where they show the bodies without skin. The museum had an exhibit where they had the body. I think it was just called The Body. I don't know. I don't remember.
It could be. Yeah.
But yeah, they had all of these bodies, real human bodies without skin and without muscle, and splayed out the nerves and everything like that, and it was fascinating. So I do kind of know what it would look like without skin.
What a face looks like without skin, but that's not something that...
I don't know what my face looks like without skin.
Yeah. Or mine. If I pulled my skin off, would that horrify you?
Yes, I would be horrified.
I think it would. If you pulled your skin off, I would be horrified. That's why I use that term horror movies. It's not something you want to see. You don't want to do that. You don't want to go through that. If you're in a traffic accident and your skin does happen to fall off or get ripped off or burned off, you'd be better off not knowing that. Ignorance is bliss of what burned flesh looks like.
Right.
I'd rather not see it. I'd rather not see someone with their skin ripped off, or even legs, skin ripped off of legs. That's
Yeah.
not fun either.
A hand degloved, right? That's just the worst.
Degloved, right. If your ring gets caught on something, there are things that are better not to know truths, like what the inside of my hand looked like to the inside of my face, what the muscles actually look like under my cheekbones, or on top of my cheekbones, under my skin. I don't need to know that. And I'm better not knowing that truth.
That's a truth that's there. It does look like something, but you don't want to know what it looks like.
Right. And all your muscles underneath your skin, you don't need to see the muscle, or I've got a tear in one of them. There's a lump, but I don't need to see what it's like. I can see there's a lump. It's on the wrong side. It's on this one.
Lies. So, you're lying to me.
I was feeling the wrong side. See, I lied already. That's still the icon. Our bodies, our skin, is the icon of what we actually are. There is flesh and blood, and that body exhibit said, these are the nerves, these are the blood vessels, the blood veins, this is what the muscles look like underneath the skin. This is what a face looks like with all its muscles under the skin. When someone's smiling, when someone's frowning, this is what it looks like, the differences. But with the skin on it looks totally different than just the muscle.
Yeah.
So that idea, we are just an icon. We're not who we actually are, physically even. Our physical actuality has this machine beating in us all the time that no one ever sees.
Right. Well, yeah, and maybe the medical doctors that are doing triple bypass surgery or whatever, they can see the machine beating.
Right. And they can take it out, they can fix it, they can work on it if it's necessary to get to it, but it's better not to.
It's better.
I think ignorance is bliss of that too. I'd rather no one ever see my heart.
Yeah.
That's the best way to live. Don't let anyone ever see your heart.
Yeah. Or about what do they say? The true heart, your true feelings, that's not even possible, is it? To show your true feelings or your true emotions.
Well, we always do it. Actuality, reality and actual. What actually happens is we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
The words I'm saying actually come out. And I actually picked the wrong arm for that anomaly I was going to mention. It was true what I did, but it wasn't necessarily true when I went over here. It's not truly on this arm. No, it's truly over here. And does that matter?
Sometimes the truth doesn't matter what the actual truth is, right?
Okay, and you use that word sometimes again inappropriately. Why do you keep using that word?
Because I think sometimes the truth does matter.
Okay, when could it actually matter? Let's find that
okay,
space.
What about, if I'm baking cookies and I've got to put sugar in my cookies to make them taste good. And my sugar jar is unlabeled. So what if somebody accidentally filled it with salt? Then it's not truly sugar. And that matters to the cookies. It has to be truly sugar. It can't be salt that I can't put a cup of salt in my cookie recipe, because then it would be gross.
And have the consequence come out appropriately. So your truth matters to consequences. Truth or consequences.
Yeah.
The consequence is related to the truth. If you put the wrong ingredient in your cookies, they're going to taste differently.
Right.
I mean, they talk about putting brownies. How much feces would you allow?
0%, I think.
Absolutely zero. Was a little bit good enough? Can we go with 10% and you'd be okay with the brownies still?
Yeah.
The consequence is where truth matters. If someone's going to make you brownies, you want to make sure that they don't have any bad. You're trusting the truth, trusting to that truth noun that there's good ingredients in those brownies that they brought you over.
That they didn't put anything in there.
Yeah, or that they used actually sugar instead of salt.
Right.
In that amount. You need salt, but you just don't need that much of it.
Yeah.
Truth is always important only to the consequences, though.
If the truth, whether it's something is true or not, doesn't affect the consequences, then maybe it's only sometimes important.
Okay, and is there a consequence that doesn't rely on truth? Can you have a consequence that didn't come from something? I mean, that's the definition of consequence. It came from something, and it came from a true something actually happened, which created the consequence. what's the other word? It's consequences, and it's when something follows on something else. It's not correlated. Causation. You can't always identify the causation of a consequence, but if you can identify a consequence that it's truly there, you truly have curly hair. We don't know what the causation of that curly hair is.
Yeah. I don't even know if I was born with curly hair or not. My hair's always seemed straight when I was a kid, but was it just because we always combed it straight? I did have straight hair when I was a kid, right? I remember pictures where my hair was definitely straight, right? Do you remember that?
I don't even remember those. No, I don't remember you with straight hair as a kid. I don't remember you with curly hair.
I had no hair.
There is no truth that you had any hair when you were a child.
Yeah.
I don't have a direction one way or another. And the only reason I brought up your hair, I see that you have curly hair. I think that's true. You may not. It may not be curly right now. The consequence is that you have curly hair. We don't know what the truth is that caused it.
Right.
So maybe what we're seeing, maybe true, is just we're seeing icons or consequences of a truth that exists. I mean, our human bodies are an icon of the truth that is us. And you talked about our heart, our feelings, and our true character. We don't know what the true character is. We only know the icon that comes out when we're talking, when we're conversing, when we're interacting with somebody. We can see the icon of the character, but we don't know the truth behind it. We know the consequence that we laughed to what that guy said, but we don't know the truth behind the joke that he just prosed to cause us all to laugh.
If I was going to search this icon idea, what would I search up?
I just try that way. We are icons. It's icons on a computer, humans.
This Orthodox Christian Network website says we are icons, parentheses, images of God.
That's a faith-based concept, is that God is the father of our spirits and of our beings.
Yeah. My searches aren't helping. Does Life Make Sense by Deepak Chopra?
See, maybe this is what we talked about, using incognito mode. Maybe we did go to that. Because
yeah. Proof. Okay, so Deepak, is that how you say his name? Deepak Chopra?
Deepak
Chopra. He says in this thing on medium.com, proof in a scientific age needs to be objective. Here's a credible argument for why life makes total sense, not just human life, but all life, down to single-celled organisms. If you consider the human brain, it either creates meaning out of raw sensory input or it processes that input as an agent of the mind. We don't need to go into the intricacies of mind versus brain here. It is enough that the brain allows us to make sense of life. Well, I don't know if that's kind of...
Physical world is an icon. Is the physical world just a representation? That's a Reddit thing. This is what AI says about this. Is the physical world just an icon?
Mm-hmm.
The idea that our physical world is just an icon is a concept often explored in philosophy and spirituality, suggesting that our perceived reality is not the ultimate reality, but rather a representation or symbol of a deeper, more fundamental layer of existence, such as an icon on a computer screen represents a larger file or image.
Okay.
So that's the concept wherever that comes from, but its physical world is just an icon. That's what I searched with that. And so you can delve deeper into that.
We'll put something in the show notes for that. It'll make sense. It'll make sense later when we're older.
When we're older.
Yeah.
The truth of that can be figured out. But that's the concept, and it is there. There's a number of places. Cura has a thing on it. But we'll find an appropriate one to put in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay, I want to pivot a little bit.
Okay.
I think one reason why Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson couldn't come to an agreement on what truth meant in their conversation, I think was because Sam Harris felt that Jordan Peterson was using truth in a way that just it wasn't what everybody, like the majority, would use it as. Like when you say the scriptures are true, or the story of Adam and Eve is true, and you're not actually saying that's factual, it actually happened, this is reality. If you're not saying that, and you're using true in a true north, arrow flies true kind of way instead, like then it's confusing. Maybe there's other words that could have been used instead of true.
I don't think so. I mean, there are, in this dictionary, there are 13 definitions of true.
Yes, but everybody knows the first one.
13 different aspects of true. Well, everyone actually knows all 13, or they wouldn't exist. You know, you talked about the true arrow flight, or true direction, true standing. Let's talk about that logically true, or in reality. I was thinking about a true direction, so that the true direction of something.
Okay.
You say something's true if it's perpendicular to the earth or perpendicular to another line. That line is perpendicular. That's a true perpendicular.
Okay. Mathematically.
Yeah. Or if you're doing it, you're going to stand true perpendicular to the earth. That's what I was thinking, perpendicular to the earth. If you're standing straight up and down on land, on the side of the earth, even if you're next to someone else, you could be on a rock and you could be tilted, but you're standing straight up but even anywhere on the earth, on the globe, since it's a globe, those two lines are not going to stay parallel. They may look parallel right now, but at some point they're going to cross the direction. If you try to point true north with your compass, it's going to cross the next true north. Even if it's only an inch away, it's going to cross that next true north.
Okay.
So on a globe, you can't have a true direction. And if we use 2 points between the earth and the sun, I was trying to think of that too. If you try to put a direction between that, depends on where you start on the earth. I mean, your perspective makes all the difference in where those lines cross at the end. The sun is in one place. For you and me, we're 100 miles apart from each other. If you look up the sun, it's going to be in the same place, almost. And for practical purposes, it's in the same place. The sun's in the sky. It's at the 12 o'clock spot. And even from someone in New York, it's going to look almost the same. But if you plot it and mathematically try to identify it, you're completely different. From you to me, completely different. So you talk about true direction, but a direction is never true.
Right. So that's why I was using that as an example, is it's true direction.
It's always subjective.
Or yeah, that's a feeling, like, kind of thing. It's not material. It's
when someone says, stand up straight, I am standing up straight. No, you're not.
Yeah. So Jordan Peterson's rule, tell the truth, or at least don't lie, right? I would say,
yeah,
thinking back to our precise speech conversation, use language that people will understand, or at least don't use language that people misunderstand.
And those are axioms. They're things that are good to try. Idioms, axioms.
I don't know. Axiom, maybe.
Metaphors. I think that's what he's talking about. If, like Adam and Eve, what Sam Harris was talking about, or what you were saying there, did it actually happen? Are we talking about a literal thing that occurred, or a metaphor of what truth you're trying to point to?
Yeah.
Even tell the truth, or at least don't lie. That's still a metaphor. At least don't lie. So I don't want to do the least I can do. Why would I not do more than that? Tell the truth. But you always tell the truth.
Well, and there's more in this chapter on that rule too. It's not cut and dry like that, but
your truth is different than mine about that Disneyland vacation. We agree on most of it. Fundamentally, we agree on most of it. But there will be things. I don't believe you made a mess in the bathroom. I have no memory of that, no truth about that whatsoever.
Well, you know why? It's because Mom had to clean it up. You were still in the frame of mind where Dad sits on the couch.
Doesn't do family things.
Right.
So I should go and ask her if she remembers that.
If she remembers that, yeah.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
Let's take a break here for a second. You're a liar.
Why? What did Mom say?
She has no recollection of that truth. She didn't clean it up. Maybe you cleaned it up by yourself.
Huh. Yeah.
But we don't. She says it could have happened. That's what she said. How she put it. It could have happened. So it's possible. She allows for the possibility. I'm allowing for the possibility too, because we trust you. We believe you don't lie. There's no reason for you to lie about that, and you have it in your memory as a truth.
Yeah, it's possible that that's just one of several things that happened that day because you guys had 4 or 5 kids at that point already.
Right.
What I was doing didn't matter anyway.
Correct. And it was just a nothing to us. But see, you have other people, like you talked about, corroborative people that are there. You have other people there in that situation, but we can't prove the truth, the veracity of that historical event.
Yeah.
Now, the floor likely remembers it, and whatever needed to be cleaned up remembers it, but we don't.
Right.
Is it metaphorical? You're actually stating a truth, though. You're not trying to identify a metaphor, an axiom, something to live by. It's just...
Yeah. Never drink pool water, maybe. That's an important rule to live by.
like don't eat yellow snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's because this is what will happen.
You think it was the pool water that caused that?
Yeah, I don't know if it would have had that effect so quickly. It must have been all of the popcorn we ate at Disneyland the day before, though. I mean, I don't know. Something happened.
Right.
That's neat that Mom doesn't remember that. I'm glad that that's not something she holds against me for the rest of my life is remember that one time.
Oh, you see, so that releases you a little bit more, that at least that little angst about your childhood isn't there. You can release that. So you're a little bit lighter.
Yes.
You're a little bit lighter today.
Yeah.
And she was even happy telling me about that. It didn't bother her that I asked her. That was cool too.
Oh, good. Cool. So, you know how they write news articles in 4th grade language. They don't use anything harder to understand than elementary school or whatever, right? Because that's who the people are that are reading the news. And people that are really good at capturing attention on YouTube, they make sure that they're not using hard to understand language. And I think that helps them be successful in their business.
The truth of that. So what's the truth of that statement you just made? It's true that they probably do it because they think it's going to be better. Jordan Peterson clearly doesn't worry about that.
Yeah. He knows his audience is different.
Right. But his audience is one of the largest audiences in the world. It's all those people who other people think you have to speak in 4th grade language to get their attention. He doesn't consider that whatsoever.
Yeah.
And he's got their attention anyway. So what's true about that?
I think it's maybe not the largest audience in the world or whatever. I mean, he's a very popular guy among certain people, but still I can find people that don't know who Jordan Peterson is.
It's possible that more people know who Donald Trump is than know who Jordan Peterson is. Yes.
Yes.
So I would agree with that because he's been more of an outspoken person.
My point really is if your purpose is to speak to everyone about something, to convert everyone to an idea, you've got to use language that they all understand. If Jordan Peterson's purpose in speaking about the truth of an idea, of one thing, a truth of a story, if his purpose is to convert everyone to consider the meaning of that story, like I imagine the purpose, the reason he talks about the Genesis and Exodus, like the reason he did those things was to find what they really mean.
Underlying truths, meanings.
Right. And so if he wanted to make that accessible to everybody on the planet, then he would have to use language understandable to everybody on the planet.
Yes. And he does, right? I understand. He does break it down and he explains things over 10 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Using every word, every avenue of it, just like our conversation here. We're trying to look at every avenue of it. We're not just saying it's ubiquitous. And then people who don't know what that word means will not even care.
Well, maybe they'll create their own meaning of the word in their head. They'll be like, oh, ubiquitous means purple. It's always purple. Okay.
Right, exactly. Or it means that it's sad, and it's always sad. I agree. It's always sad.
Yeah. You know, the word elated, it's supposed to mean like happy, right? It's like if you're feeling elated, then you're feeling particularly happy about something. But I didn't know that until like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Before that, I thought when someone said elated, they were saying something negative. They're like, I'm just elated about this. I'm like, I'm sorry. That's
Sorry that you're so
that's too
elated.
bad. So if you don't know the meaning of a word, then you learn different things about the idea. So if Jordan Peterson's going to use the word truth about anything in the Bible, then he's got to use words that actually mean something to the people he's speaking to, I guess.
Right. And that's that thing. And maybe we can include it in here that, do you believe in God? He took every one of those words. Do you believe in God? Those three words, he took an hour and a half to describe those three words. What you is, what God is, what believe is, what it means to believe.
Yeah.
And he told stories, all kinds of stories. Started out with a story about Elon Musk on the belief system. And he related it to everything that everyone is dealing with now. Political environments were included in it. And it's all the stuff that we're trying to talk about. We're bringing real examples into our discussion about truth and trying to identify. We find where things make sense. And we're doing it in the simplest language we can accomplish too, as well. So yeah, what you're saying is appropriate. Yeah, I started battling against it, but that's not what I want to do. I agree that you do want to break things down to the simplest form so that it can be more easily understood, because that's how you break down a word anyway. Any definition, like truth, we found reality and actual, what's actually there.
Right. And there's something to be said about truth that you can rely on. It's something that doesn't change based on time passing or the people that are looking at
It's
it.
interesting.
Like principles. I mean, this 7 Habits book is talking about principles as truth. I mean, what is it he said there on that page? Principles. When we value correct principles, we have truth, a knowledge of things as they are. Correct principles give truth. And things as they are, like maybe the thing changes, but the truth about it shouldn't change, depending on, if you have principles, if you live a principle-centered life, then you know what the truth is, whether you're at home or at work or with all your friends at the bar or at church, or, you know what the truth is because you have the principles behind it. And you can rely on those to be always true, the correct principles.
A true principle? How do you know if a principle is true? Correct. He used the word correct. And
yeah, well, that's what Stephen Covey uses.
yeah, he's using his subjective description of this is a true principle. And when we'll get into it when we talk about this book, but
yeah,
it is his perception, his perspective on it. Here's where I found a true statement in there, a statement about truth, since he's talking in proactivity. I'm just going to read this part and what it meant to me. Proactive is part of human nature. And although the proactive muscles may be dormant, they are there. So that's stating a truth. We have choice, and he's talking about our choice, our ability to act. They are there. By respecting the proactive nature of other people, we provide them with at least one clear, undistorted reflection from the social mirror. So if we treat everyone else as though they have proactive power, then they get one clear, undistorted reflection because they have it. If we consider it as truth and we're reflecting back to them a truth, you can decide if you're upset or happy with me. I'm fine with that. I'm not going to make you think, I try to make you think one way or the other. You decide.
Reflection, like I'm rubber and you're glue and everything you say bounces off me and sticks to you.
Mirroring, I'm rubber and you're glue. Everything you say bounces off me and sticks to you. That's kind of a slap in the face though, isn't it?
It is. It's meant to be a slap in the face. Like you can say whatever you want about me.
But mirroring is different.
Yeah.
Mirroring isn't that it's sticking to you. It's, I'm going to show you a true reflection of yourself. And so the true reflection, that's why I said truth, a stated truth, show them what they are truly. If you believe, and it's just a belief, that everyone is proactive, that everyone has the choice, that they can choose their own actions, the way they think about something. If you reflect that to them always, then they're going to see a true reflection, is what he said. They'll have at least one clear, undistorted reflection. That's assuming that that truth is actually in them. And Stephen Covey just going through his statement, this is a truth, it's one principle he said I believe in. So is that principle actually true, or could it be not true?
How would you know if it's not true? What is the test?
What could be a test? If they see the reflection. So his truth, his statement was that they will see one honest reflection of who they really are. His truth that he's trying to suppose, is that we all have this innate proactivity inside of us. But that's a psychological thing. If someone doesn't believe they have it, do they have it still? And if you try to tell them they have it and they know they don't have it, if they're a complete reactive.
Yeah, didn't he say in that paragraph that it's there lying dormant?
Right. If it lies dormant. So that's saying it's there all the time. You're just not using it. I'm not using a piece of my psychology that I don't know. Can you use something you don't know? Or is it there already, even if you don't know it? That's what he's trying to propose. They don't know some psychological tool. Is it still there? Is your proactivity still there? He's saying it is still there.
Yeah, whether you believe it or not, it's still there, right?
Right. And that would be absolute truth, right? Whether you believe it or not, something absolutely true is still there. You don't have to prove it. How can you know that it's still there? That a psychological characteristic, how do we know that every human being, maybe every animal, has it?
You can't know. You can't know that everybody has it. Is it absolute whether you know it or not, whether you can know it or not? Even if it's unknowable, is it still true?
Okay. And let's use something that we had in a conversation before. We talked about telepathy. Is that a true characteristic inside of our brains? He's saying that proactivity is a true characteristic dormant inside of us. Telepathy is dormant inside of us. We could say that. If we say that that's true, how does that play in society?
Yeah, it could be one of those things that is true and it's unknowable. Like like maybe some people have tested it and seen the consequences, they've seen the consequences of what's happening, of their tests.
Yeah. They assume it must be telepathy.
Yeah.
Let's call it telepathy that happened, caused these consequences. But they don't know the truth of that causation.
Whatever it might be called, it could be called any word. We could call it ubiquitous. That could be its new name.
Well, and that's what we're questioning. Is telepathy, is proactivity and telepathy ubiquitous or not?
And I don't even know what ubiquitous means at this point. It means purple.
No, it means everywhere. It means obviously everywhere. So it's a principle that is true. A ubiquitous is a principle that's true. A ubiquitous principle would be always true, whether you believe it or not.
Okay.
Like gravity. But then there's places that gravity seems to be off too. Physics, when you get off the planet, is different than physics on the planet.
No, I think physics, no matter where you are, is the same. It's, the mass of the Earth determines how strong the gravity is. So the mass of the moon has a different level of gravity, but it's still calculable with physics, the same principles of physics.
Okay.
You don't change the physics when you're going somewhere else.
You're relying on that truth, but then we have quantum mechanics, quantum physics, string theory. There's all kinds of things that break the physical physics. There's points at which they don't mathematically calculate anymore in the small and the large degree. I don't know any more about it than that, but I do know that they break, and that's why string theory exists. It's a theory still. We don't know. We don't know the truth. We know the consequence, but we can't point to the truth of it.
Yeah. Okay, I think I understand. So telepathy, if it's true, no matter what anybody believes, if it's possible inside of every one of us, no matter what we think if it's possible or not, then it's an absolute truth that this is possible. It's an absolute truth that proactivity is possible.
Yeah. So if he says proactivity is dormant, maybe someone else could say, like Napoleon Hill did say, telepathy is consciousness to consciousness conversation is dormant in most people.
Napoleon Hill said that?
Yeah. And you can open it up. That's in Think Grow Rich. I mean, it's the same concept of telepathy.
Okay.
Unconscious communication. We do it all the time. We're doing it now. That's the reason we put the video in front of us. Even though we're not showing the video to anyone else, we're unconsciously talking to each other by the visual, by me knowing you're in the same place in the conversation.
Yeah. Is it provable that there are absolute truths? Is that scientifically provable, where they can prove it and everyone can look at that proof and say, yes, there's absolute truth here?
Trying to think of that. Is there anything we have proven to be absolutely true that everyone agrees to without question?
Without question. I mean, that's making me think of the idea that when Jesus comes again, then every knee will bend, right? That will be an absolute truth, right? That everyone will acknowledge that.
That's one of those future R's that we don't know yet.
Yeah.
Don't know how that's going to happen. That's stated as a future R, and so there's supposition questioning whether that is actually going to occur just that way, or if that was the right description of it. Because when Isaiah tried to describe airplanes, he had no idea how to say that.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly that connotation, but some of the things that Isaiah, his weird words in the scripture.
Yeah.
Maybe he's describing airplanes. So we don't know what we don't know. So you can't use a future event as an absolute truth. It has to be something right now. Does everyone know that Donald Trump is the president of the United States?
Apparently Elon Musk's son doesn't believe it.
He's just a friend. He's just a guy in the seat.
Yeah, well, no, there's video where you can hear the video where Trump is sitting at the desk and Elon is talking.
Yeah.
He's standing up and talking.
I heard X was saying some things, but some people have deciphered what he said exactly.
Yeah, and it's saying, is that his name, X?
X, yeah. His name is X.
Not 10?
No.
Apparently what he was saying was, you're not the president. Things like that.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what it sounds like people are saying he's saying. It was whispered, and Trump would look away like, kid, But I didn't watch the whole video, so I can't say for sure what the truth is.
I watched the video. I heard him whispering things, and I don't know what that chain is on his, Elon said this is his chain of something.
Uh-huh.
He had a chain under his jacket.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. So there was something special about that. And it is odd. We've talked about that before. It's odd that X is able to be in the White House in a perfect business setting. And Elon didn't change his status of speaking with his son there even. He picked him up, put him on his neck, and, he was relatively calm and cared for.
Yeah. It's all interesting.
Does everyone know who Elon Musk is? There are probably people that don't know who Elon Musk is. And there are probably people who don't care the president of the United States. Maybe even people in the U.S. that don't care who the president and have no idea who the president is, even now.
Right. And we're not talking about 2-year-olds. We're talking about grown adults that would know.
And that's like the people that they, man on the street, there's microphones that go out and say, who's the president of the United States right now? They have no idea. Who's George Washington? Yeah, I don't know who George Washington is. What's the Supreme Court of the United States? I don't know. They ask questions that everyone should know, but no one knows. They just people that don't care.
Yeah.
They do care. They care about their life, their living, and it doesn't include a president of the United States.
Yeah. They're reactive. They're going with the flow. Whatever happens to them today is they'll move with that.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what happens tomorrow.
And that is their truth and their reality. Their reality doesn't include a president. And it doesn't include a Jesus Christ. It doesn't include a my knee is bowing to anything. Maybe they're They are truly proactive in themselves, and they just, that's not dormant, it's active, and they're living the life they want to live, and it doesn't include this stuff that I don't need to know. So I don't need to know it. So there's nothing that is completely knowable, ubiquitous, a truth that is irrefutable.
But is it still absolute, though? I mean,
Well, gravity, I think it's something like gravity. Everyone has to absolutely believe in gravity.
well, whether people believe in it or not, it's still there, right?
Okay, right, because of the consequence. You can feel the consequence on your chair of gravity.
Yeah. But let's say I have a disorder that makes it feel like I'm floating all the time. So I can't feel the gravity. I'm sitting on the chair and I see that maybe I don't see. Maybe I feel like I'm floating, and also my eyesight is a little bit distorted too. So it looks like maybe I'm in the middle of the room and not on the floor to me.
Vertigo, if you have a dizzy spell, vertigo happens, then gravity disappears from you. Even though you're riding on the floor, you feel like you're floating in space. You have to trust your senses in order to feel gravity, but did gravity change because your senses don't see
Don't
it?
feel it. Like if you're feeling the effects of being drunk or high and the room is spinning, and you know that the world is not spinning, the room is not spinning, and you're not even spinning either. You're laying on the couch, you're not moving, but it feels like you're spinning. The truth is that you're not moving. The world is not moving.
And gravity's still affecting your body, even though you feel it's not.
Yeah. But you're feeling something different. So that's your truth at the minute, but your truth is a lie, because the actual reality of the situation, the absolute truth, is that nothing is happening outside of you.
It's only a lie based on someone else's perspective. Your perspective is you're spinning, and that's the truth. It's truly what you're like. If you're in pain, is your pain level 8 or 3? 12. My pain level is 12. That's actual, even though you can't prove that from any outside. It may be just neurological, might be neurological, may just be mental, psychological, that pain you're feeling.
So there's two truths then. The truth that everyone else sees and the truth that you're feeling. Two absolute truths. The absolute truth is that you're not moving, but then the absolute truth is also that you feel like you're moving.
That you are moving in your feelings, in your heart. You talked about the truth of true heart, your true character, your true self.
Mm-hmm.
Your true self is doing something all the time. And it's not necessarily true to the people in your room with you. You're hot or cold. The room has a temperature, an absolute temperature, but whether that's hot or cold depends on the perspective of the individual. You can calculate the temperature, and then it's a continuum. You're not ever going to be exact on the temperature. This molecule is hotter than this molecule, and that's okay. There's an average temperature of the room.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But there's still an absolute truth, right?
That's the question.
I know.
And I think it's still in question. There's an absolute truth. We are bodies here, but we're just the icon of that body. We don't know the nuts and bolts behind it. And gravity, we know the consequences. That's what I was trying to point to, consequences. I think the way to view truth is through consequences. We can see the consequence of gravity. We can see that there's an impression on my chair. It takes energy to pick my arm up, and if I let go of the energy, it falls. Certainly, there's a gravity. There's some consequence, but what causes that fall? Is it the centrifugal force of the earth? Is it the mass, just mass? There's other things related there.
Yeah. A lot of other things in play that affects the consequences. How fast does your arm fall? And where does it fall? Does it fall to the left or to the right?
In one of those, based on weight, they fall exactly the same. 1,000-pound thing falls exactly the same speed that a 10-pound thing falls.
Right. But if you're on the moon, like a 10-pound ball on Earth falls faster than a 10-pound ball falls on the moon, too.
Right. If it falls at all, the difference of gravity.
Yeah.
And it'll fall 10 times faster on Mars with 9 times the gravity that we currently have.
I think we've got to stop using gravity as as a basis of truth.
Well, what else? What more common truth can we find?
There is a God.
No, that's way off from
That's
gravity.
way off. But it's something that
There's no scientific. People believe that's true. Yeah, everyone believes that's true because of the story, because of the testimony, and because of the way the earth works. And you talk about intelligent design of everything. You know, that everything works. All of this thing we're looking at is governed by something, and it's
so complex.
the icons that we see is so complex. Yeah, complexity of it. There's got to be an intelligence behind it, and that's what we call God, and God is there, and God created all this, and He's stated in the books, the simple stories that we operate and believe, that Adam and Eve and God created the worlds, and Jesus Christ was there, and by His word He spoke it into existence, and now Christ and God are ruling. The Godhead works, the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit is here communicating to us, and that's why we get revelations and inspirations and intuitive thoughts as we work towards them. It all works, that we can see this circumstance, we can see the causes, it's not circumstance, the
consequences
of our thoughts and our actions and our words. We can see the consequences. And so we try to relate the truth behind it. But you can't know the truth of God behind all of it. And why can't you know that? Because of this innate thing that Stephen Covey's talking about, our proactivity, the power of choice that he says is dormant in everyone. It's either dormant or active. If you're not acting on it, it's there. And to show you a true picture of your choice, that may be the only truth that we have, a truth of, and how do you prove that you have that choice?
Yeah. Is that truth provable?
Yeah. Is any principle we propose to live by a true principle? And what makes it true? Even you don't even know what consequences that principle necessarily creates. If I use this principle, it's going to create these consequences, except if I run into this type of person, then the consequence is going to be different.
Yeah. Well, and it can be like physics. Principles are generally true for a regular-sized population. When you bring it down to one person, then it gets sketchy. Or when you bring it down out to the whole world's population or all of existence, then it's sketchy. Like you don't know if it's going to work for...
As long as you're dealing with the neurotypical, everything's great. But anytime you get out in the edges, it may not work. And they may not understand what you mean by neurotypical or by proactive or dormant. I don't even understand dormant.
Right. So then principles aren't, like you can't identify absolute true principles, and the absolute true physics equations, they're not absolutely true. They're not true in some cases.
Whether you believe them or not, an absolute truth is something that's active, whether you believe it or not.
Yeah.
They possibly are. And maybe that's the appropriate word of the use of the word sometimes.
Sometimes, mostly. Sometimes not, though. I just read a word that I've been trying to think of for ages. Congruency. If something is congruent, it's the same across all applications, right?
Right. Or it aligns with the same things. It aligns with the same things across all applications. Congruent. It's not congruent to itself. It has to be congruent to something else. Congruency means there's a relationship, and that relationship stands the test of time.
Congruous. In agreement, harmony, conforming to the circumstances. Okay. Well, I mean, the idea is that, I don't know if that's the right word to use then, but the idea is there a truth that is true, whether people believe it or not, whether it's day or night, whether it's now or in 800 BC, like, is there, whether we can know it or not, whether it's believable or not, right? I mean, I said that, but whether we can test it or not, do you think, like, I don't know if we can identify it, but do you think it's likely, or it's always, or it's never that something is true, regardless of what anything else that happens around it?
I just start with our conversation. Where we started this whole conversation a year ago almost on unconditional love. Is love true? Does love exist? That's what we kind of treated it to start this whole thing. What is it? And is it conditioned? Is it unconditioned? Is it always there? Does it come from somewhere else, or does it come from us? That's the reason we're talking about truth now, is because every conversation we've had, everything we delve into, we have to determine what's the truth of it.
Right.
That's what we're trying to find, is how true is the discussions we're having. Not being experts, not knowing anything other than common knowledge about life and world and we've lived. We're trying to identify what truth is and whether it's important. And I don't know that we're coming to a conclusion that is there something you can absolutely say is true. Love, that may be the feeling, the principle that would be most identifiable as everywhere and absolutely true.
Across all time and space.
Is it feasible that someone would not understand love or know love at all, love or hate? I mean, the spectrum, the continuum of love. Could you operate on the earth or anywhere and not have that continuum? I love this or I don't love this. What else would you?
I don't know if love is black and white enough.
Do you know people that don't know anything about love? I don't know anyone, or any animals or any tree. Tree loves water.
I don't know. I can imagine.
Yeah, in your imagination, what would it look like?
Because love is a feeling, a tree benefits from water, but can it feel appreciation and love towards the water or whatever gave it water? But can it?
The consciousness. So you're questioning consciousness of it.
Yeah.
And saying that's how love operates, through consciousness. So is that true? Does love operate through consciousness only? Or does this mouse love sitting on that mouse pad?
The mouse works better when it
on a
is
mouse pad
on
instead of a
a
table.
mouse pad. Yeah. It doesn't work as well off of a mouse pad, but I don't think it can love. I don't think there's love there. I don't think that we can say love is just a state of benefiting from something else. Like, I benefit from my husband's willingness to go to work every day, but do I love him that he's going to work? Or
is love based on something else, you're saying?
Yeah, love is probably based on other things.
And you're going too specific in your determination of love.
Yeah.
And the use of the word, you're using it a specific way.
Kind of, maybe.
You could say jokingly, well, yeah, this mouse does love the mouse pad. I could say that. It never tell me that, but it loves the mouse pad
In a
much
very
more than it loves the
broad sense of the word.
of the word love. Yeah, in the unconditional sense of the word, not the conditioned love that I only love those things that I can consciously attend to.
Okay.
Yeah, go back to that conversation if you guys haven't heard that yet. That's a good one.
Go listen to how we first were in our very first episode.
Exactly. And it's still cogent and concurrent in this conversation. So that's what's cool. If I had a vision of something there, but now I've lost it.
Oh.
Whatever it was.
Yeah. Well,
we don't have any conclusions, but the only reason this came up as truth is because we've talked about it 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 times, and it's going to come up again because the absolute truth of something is subjective.
Yeah.
The objective truth of something is a subjective. And I guess let me say it this way: diversity. What was the statement about that? The only equity is that there is diversity. So in order to have equity everywhere, you've got to know that there's diversity of it. You can't say this is the absolute answer. We're gonna equate everything to this absolute truth. The only absolute truth is there's a diversity of everything. We talked about things being on the spectrum, and you always have more or less, or higher or lower, or colder or hotter. There's more true, less true. More remembered,
always,
less remembered.
Sometimes it's never always or never, right?
It's always sometimes.
Never, always, or never.
Yeah. That's a good quote. It's always sometimes, never, always, or never.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere on that continuum. It's never here or there only. It's never only, it's always sometimes. So the absolute truth is, I like that, how we've come up with it. It's consequences. Consequences point to the truth, but they don't guarantee the truth.
Okay, they don't show the cause. Exactly.
They don't actually identify causation. You can identify a specific cause. You can say that the car ran into that traffic, the post that caused the accident, that caused the post to bend, but you step those causes back. You don't know what it was that caused the accident in the first place. What caused that person to be 70? You should have thought about that before you decided to be 19. That was the cause. So just the fact that you're mature to 19 or immature at 19 instead of 22, you never would have done that.
Huh. Well, and that's what the insurance company believes. That's why insurance rates for 19-year-olds are so much more than for 22-year-olds.
Way higher. Yeah, because you never would have done that at 22 or 26.
Yeah.
Whatever the year breaks.
Whatever it is.
The actuarially, and they only do that. They charge that because they're mathematically, they can prove it. So their actuarial tables show this is the status that we're insuring against.
Yeah. All right. Let's close it out.
That's good. We have no conclusion. It's open.
Cool. So this has been Do You Have a Minute? And you can contact us in a various number of ways, many ways. There's email, there's voicemail. You can leave us a voicemail. We probably will not answer when I actually don't have it set to ring my phone. You have to leave a voicemail and then I will listen to it. We have a website. We just launched our website. It's doyouhaveaminutepodcast.com. If you are listening to this now when we've published it, we launched the website 5 weeks ago. So it's there. It has all of our episodes on there, and it has the transcripts, which is very important because you can go to any episode and search in the page for any particular word, and you will find where we talked about that. I think that's just the bee's knees, that you can actually search our spoken words.
Excellent. The truth of that is it doesn't exist today as we're talking, but as you're listening to this, our expectation of the truth of things as they are and will be, it'll be there.
Yeah.
By the time you hear this.
But it is actually there. I did work on that. I got all of the episodes up so far to today.
Excellent. So there's progress on it.
Yeah. Our website, all of our show notes show how to contact us, and we thank you so much for listening to us talk to each other.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have a good day.
Very good. See you later. Bye.